Hello, my name is Seth Griffin, and welcome to Thinking Freely. And today I just want to continue my study that I've been doing on the papacy, which is the office of the Pope. And last video I did a study, and I got to somewhere in church history where it talked about Pope Victor I, which was part of the West Roman Empire, and he sent out a decree to the Eastern churches, and Polycrates answered that decree, which he was trying to make Easter universally practiced on Sunday. And we kind of seen when I read throughout that story that it didn't seem like the claim that the Roman Catholic Church makes today, that the Roman bishop or the Pope has all authority over all the churches and whatever he says goes. And we've seen the Eastern churches push back on that authority. And when studying church history, this has been the hardest thing for me, because when I listen to church history and I read church history from a Catholic, I get a Catholic view of church history. When I read it from an Eastern Orthodox, or listen to it from an Eastern Orthodox, I get their view of church history. Same thing with a Baptist, same thing with a Presbyterian, same thing with a Protestant. And I find whoever I'm listening to, it's very biased towards their sect of Christianity or their denomination of Christianity. And so it's very difficult to study this topic. So you have to listen to different people and gather different information and then study those specific topics. But that's how I stumbled upon the topic that I'm going to be going over with you right now. And it's actually going to be on the Nicene Council, the ecumenical council that was called by Constantine to unify the church, because they had some people in the church who were, it's called the Arian controversy. And so this is where the doctrine of the Trinity was articulated a little bit better. And I see the doctrine of the Trinity more the deity of Christ and who Christ was. They also had 20 canons of law that came through this Council of Nicea. And that's actually some of the material that I want to be reading with you guys today. And this is where it first gets into the what is called the 5 patriarchates, or the pentarchy, which is the 5 main churches who had jurisdiction in the early church. And obviously the Roman Catholic Church would reject this and say that the Pope is the main authority over all the church. But the Eastern Orthodox would say, well, no, there was these 5 patriarchs. And these 5 patriarchates are Rome, the Bishop of Rome, of Constantinople, of Antioch, Alexandria, and Jerusalem. And these 5 were said to, in the early church, to have equal authority and operate as a unit. And so the claim of the papacy is they have jurisdiction over the entire church. That is the claim of the papacy. There's this one bishop who has all authority over all the rest of the churches. And that's the claim of the Roman Catholic Church. And me just reading through some of these early church history things, and I actually want to put it on the screen, and we're gonna show y'all some of these as I read it, and I want y'all to come to your own conclusions yourself. And it's gonna be from Canon 6. Before I read it to y'all, I want y'all to know that it was very difficult in the early church, because not only was it divided from the east and the west, but it were also divided by distance, very long distance to travel. It's not like they could just jump in a car and ride over to the next church to discuss. Imagine trying to discuss the Trinity and the nature of Jesus Christ and his deity, and how could God become man in the flesh, and how does it all work out. Also in different languages. The Eastern Church was a Greek-speaking church, and the Western Church was a Latin-speaking church. So yes, this council got together, the Nicene Council got together, but they also still spoke other languages trying to figure these things out. And so, but even the concept of a council getting together, it kind of undermines a little bit the papacy, because if the papacy is true and he can dictate doctrine and he's infallible and he is the sole bishop that all the other churches listen to, why don't just give your opinion from God and have it and call it that? Why you have to get all the churches together? And I think the reason why you have to get all the churches together and have these ecumenical councils is because the body matters, and the body is equal with one another, and Christ is the head of the body, not the Pope as the head of the body. It's Christ. So I think even the councils kind of undermine the doctrine of the papacy. So what I want to do for you guys is I'm gonna put it up on the screen, and I want to read from Canon 6 for you guys. And I've read through all these, and the main thing that they're focusing on is bishops and who could appoint bishops. What happens if a bishop recants the faith and wants to come back? What happens if a bishop leaves the Roman Church and wants to go bishop at one of the Jerusalem church or something? And the procedures and the laws put in place for these bishops to follow, and that can help them easily navigate through, okay, this is exactly what I have to do. So I'll just read Canon 6 for you guys. Let the ancient customs in Egypt, Libya, and Pentapolis prevail, that the bishop of Alexandria have jurisdiction in all of these. And so Alexandria is one of the patriarchates. Since like is customary for the bishop of Rome also. So the bishop of Rome also has jurisdiction over the surrounding areas that he's in charge of, and doesn't specifically give the ones that he's in charge of. But you remember, the Roman church was in the west all by itself, so more than likely it's probably all the west. Likewise, in Antioch and the other provinces, let the churches retain their privileges. And this is to be universally understood, that if anyone be made bishop without the consent of the metropolitan, the great synod has declared that such a man ought not to be a bishop. If, however, 2 or 3 bishops shall, from the natural love of contradiction, oppose the common suffrage of the rest, it being reasonable and in accordance with the ecclesiastical law, then let the choice of the majority prevail. Okay, and I'll read Canon 7 for y'all as well. I'll have it up right here. Since custom and ancient tradition have prevailed that the bishop of Jerusalem should be honored, let him, saving its due dignity to the metropolis, have the next place of honor. And guys, y'all could come to your own conclusions with this. I'm just reading it. The metropolis, as it's talking about in there, is a bishop that is over a city and surrounding towns that have multiple congregations. So this would be what the Patriarchate is, that there's these 5 bishops who have jurisdiction over the areas that they're around. Okay, and we can see in the canon that the Nicene bishops orchestrated, we can see that jurisdiction being dished out. Okay, Rome, you have this jurisdiction and you're in charge of these jurisdictions, so you appoint these bishops. Alexandria, you're in charge of this jurisdiction, you have this province, and you appoint bishops in these areas. This is your baby, this is your baby, this is Antioch's baby. And even in Canon 7 it even says, and as a tradition, we can also raise up the Jerusalem and put them in that position as well. And this is pretty significant, because the claim of the papacy is that the Pope in Rome has jurisdiction over all the other churches. And this would seem to undermine that, just reading it at face value. And also, another thing that I know the Roman Catholic Church teaches is that the Pope is the one who appoints bishops all around the world. And this is also undermining that when I'm reading it, that it actually says, no, churches have their own providences, and they can actually let bishops get into a position if they allow it. And they have to, obviously, they have a whole bunch of other stuff. You read all the other canons of vetting them and making sure that they live moral lives and making sure they didn't come from other churches and excommunicated, teaching false doctrine. So there's a lot of other things that played into it. But it wasn't just a Roman bishop dictating which bishops are going to be there. It was, they were working as a unit and as a church. And I think that is super important. And the whole papacy doctrine, I know Catholics say that it was designed to bring unity, but the very thing that they say is designed to bring unity is what caused the most division in the early church. And the reason why it caused the most division is because there was a power war. Which church had the most power? And it was never meant to be like that. And I think that's dishonoring to God when we say, I'm greater. And I think the disciples were wrestling with that too. Like, who's greater in the kingdom of God? And that is a natural question. Like, but I think when you read this, I think we can take away from it that the Pope didn't have jurisdiction over every church. That there was freedom for you to operate over these churches if you're in Antioch, the main bishop, and they did give a bishop in that area primacy over bishops of that area, but not one bishop over the entire Catholic Church. And just for future references, Catholic just means universal. So the Roman Catholic Church, they would, if you would have called the Antioch Church the Roman Catholic Church, they would have thought you crazy because they were just a Catholic Church. They were part of the Universal Church, but they were the Antioch Catholic Church. They were the church, the Universal Church that was in Antioch. So I know Rome likes to even claim Catholic, like we're the Roman Catholic Church, we're the Catholic Church. And I think even the people in that day, that would probably been something to disagree with as well. So that was the main thing, and that was one of the biggest things that the East split up over, because the Pope in the West was trying to say, I have main authority, and that is one of the things that the Eastern Orthodox or the Greek-speaking church today disagrees with as well, the papacy and the authority of the Pope to be over jurisdiction over the entire church. Okay, well, I hope y'all enjoyed this short video, and let me know what you guys think. And this is very interesting going through church history, and I enjoy going through it as well. And reading church history is kind of tricky because when you read church history, you kind of get other people's opinions. So the Catholic view of this would say, because I've read in Catholic Answers, and the only reason that the other churches had this jurisdiction is because the Roman Church allowed Antioch Church and Jerusalem Church to have this. And I feel like that's just begging the question that the papacy in Rome was the main one overall, when I think it's clear when we read in this passage that they all had equal roles and equality in stance in the kingdom of God. And a term that is coined back then, as we hear, is Rome is the first among equals. So they might be the first, but they're still among equals. And obviously the Roman Catholic Church would reject that. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I look forward to studying more on this topic, the papacy, and also other different things that I'm studying in church history. It's very interesting to dive into church history. I hope this blesses you guys, and I love you guys. God bless, and see you next time.